ESPN is sneaky. Now, I understand to be a successful company like ESPN has, there is a certain level of finesse you need to. Hell, to run a successful YouTube channel, there needs to be a certain level of finesse. So I'm not here to shake my finger and talk like I'm better than ESPN, but I am here to expose something that I think that they're doing. ESPN and its many sports personalities are carefully creating a narrative about the Cleveland Browns. And they're not doing it for charity. They're doing it because they have a plan to cash in on it. Now, this is not a conspiracy. I don't think ESPN is necessarily against the city of Cleveland, but I do think there is a method to their madness for what they're doing with the Browns. Now, to start this video, I'm going to say 3 words, and I'm going to have you associate them with ESPN, and you tell me what comes to mind. All right, you ready? Too much hype. Now, if you're a Browns fan, I'm pretty sure you've heard that narrative from a number of their on-air personalities. Whenever somebody talks about the Browns, especially if it's somebody you've never heard of, 9 times out of 10, too much hype is going to be their hot take on the Browns. A take that is heard at least 4 times a day on ESPN and 2 times on First Take. But to understand that, let me break down the ESPN hype cycle. See, ESPN has a certain cycle to how they hype up things, especially when it comes to sports teams. Now, they most commonly do this in the NBA with one LeBron James, which I'll get to later, but this is pretty much how it goes. ESPN will pick a team, a hot team, at the end of the draft cycle and at the end of free agency. Now, the Browns were a perfect candidate for that, so obviously they were selected. But ESPN will pick that team, and they will hype that team up. They will build that team up. They will talk about that team nonstop. Eventually, there's so much interest built up that 50% of their hosts start to put on a show, start to act like they're tired of talking about that team, tired of talking about the hype, even though 50% of their content comprises of that team and talk about that team and talk about how tired they are of the team. Now, why do they do that? Why do they spend so much time on one topic? For one specific reason, because they're going to cash in on it during the season when they overreact to every single little storyline that comes out about the team during the year. You spend all this time building up this team, building up interest in this team, and making this team a national story no matter what they do. So we know that they've been building up the Browns' national profile. Now, why would they do that? Well, for 2 reasons. 1, they wanted to cash in during the season, and 2, if this Browns team stinks, which is unlikely in my opinion, well, then they are going to reap the benefits, because then if you think there's enough talk about the Browns, there will be even more talk about the Browns, because that's really what ESPN will benefit the most from. They benefit the most from building up the Browns and tearing them down. That is what they're trying to do. They're trying to build us up to tear us down. Now, they're not in control of that. It's not really a conspiracy, but they do benefit the most from tearing the Browns down. So every time you listen to one of these national sports outlets, just understand that they do benefit from building this team up to tear them down. And what they're doing is they're really setting the ground to move the goalposts. And what I mean by this is that listen to the next time you hear one of these guys say too much hype for the Browns. Notice they don't ever set a solid, concrete number for what the Browns' expectations are, right? Like, if you're going to say a team has too much hype, they say vaguely, oh, they have Super Bowl expectations. They're acting as if the Browns' expectations are Super Bowl bust. They're acting like the fans' expectations are Super Bowl or bust. But that's not the reality. A lot of us don't have that expectation. A lot of us would be thrilled if this team made the AFC Championship. So what are these expectations that they're talking about? What is this hype that they're talking about? See, they won't put a number on it. They'll talk about it, they'll create it, and then they'll get mad at the team and the fan for hype that they created and nobody else participated in. That is the funny part about the ESPN cycle. It exists only in its own bubble. I see a lot of people get really mad about these ESPN takes, and I'm just saying that take it with a grain of salt. And honestly, take all sports talk with a grain of salt. Take me with a grain of salt. I know a lot of people already do. Like, when you hear somebody's opinion, it's just that about sports. It's just an opinion. You can take it with a grain of salt. Now what I want to do is really break down some of these generic surface level takes that they peddle people out here to make. The first one is that, well, the Browns only look good on paper. Yeah, the Browns look good on paper. They only look good on paper. Well, what the hell does this mean during the offseason? Everybody is on freaking paper at this point. Like, and I get it. There are some teams that have their core that have done a lot, but we don't talk about what the Philadelphia Eagles struggles are going to be with a Carson Wentz who's really not played that well last year, coming off of injury, and only played well 2 seasons ago, which was 2 season-ending injuries ago. But yet we throw Carson Wentz back out there, even though he has a lot to prove, as if he's going to be an MVP candidate again. But yeah, we can already say that the Eagles are going to have a good season. They're going to be good. They got nothing to prove, but the Browns are only good on paper. And it's like, what are you doing at that point? Are you blaming the Browns? Are you punishing the Browns for having a good roster? Like that's all it sounds like. They look good on paper. And then almost every single one of them, almost every single one of them say the same take that I don't even like Colin Cowherd, but Colin Cowherd said this one first, guys. You guys got to give him his credit. I know he doesn't work for ESPN, but if you're going to steal from him and repeat it all the time, give him the freaking credit, right? But they go, the Browns look good on paper. They ain't proved nothing. And then they go, this team went 7-8-1 last year. 7-8-1. 7-8-1. And, they'll peddle that number out there and they'll act like they don't know what the word context is. And honestly, if you don't understand the context of why Browns fans were excited for 7-8-1, well, let me explain it to you. Now, you already should know that the Browns went 0-16 the year before. I'm not even going to go over how terrible the 2 years before that 7-8-1 was, but also you have to understand some of the context that was going on within the season. See, the team celebrated 7-8-1, the fan base celebrated 7-8-1 because the team had to go through adversity and overcome it to get to that number. Because some of the obstacles that the Browns had to overcome destroyed other teams. It didn't destroy the Browns. Now, what were those obstacles? For one, they had Hugh Jackson as their head coach. Hugh Jackson, who has the worst record as a head coach of all time in modern football.
Watch the tape.
So yeah, you had the worst head coach of all time, beefing with his offensive coordinator, creating the most dysfunctional couple since Ronnie and Sammy. And yes, that is a Jersey Shore reference in 2019. They changed quarterbacks 2 weeks into the season. Apparently, Hugh Jackson didn't like the guy they switched to, so there's more dysfunction now between Hugh Jackson, his offensive coordinator, and his general manager. Gee, I wonder why Hugh Jackson got fired in the middle of the season. Oh, and by the way, you fire your head coach and your offensive coordinator in the middle of the season, which is another obstacle. Oh, and all of your wide receivers are injured, and you're down to picking up dudes off the street and practice squad guys like Derek Willie. See, most teams folded under that kind of an obstacle. But the Browns, under the leadership of Baker Mayfield, came out of that struggle and won 5 of their last 8 games. So yes, they ended the season on a good note. Yes, they finished the season with a below 500 record, but anybody who knows and had watched that season knows the context behind that. And honestly, most people who peddle that number out know the context behind that. A lot of people are wondering about Baker Mayfield's ability to lead a locker room with expectations. What if this goes bad? Well, it went as bad as it could have went last year. You fired your 2 coaches on offense and made your running back coach offensive coordinator. That is an obstacle. That is when it's not going well. And by the way, Baker Mayfield was in charge during that whole time. And you know what Baker Mayfield under his leadership did? He bonded his team around that. He put his team together. And he came out on the other side victorious with a 5-3 record. So next time somebody talks about 7-8-1, tell them that they went 7-8-1 and not like 3-12-1. That is a testament to the leadership of Freddie Kitchens and Baker Mayfield, the very two people that everybody is questioning what's going to happen when it went wrong, like it didn't go wrong last year and they didn't prove themselves last year. Then we go to the next dumb point, which is expectations will doom this team. Another Colin Cowherd point that all of the B Team ESPN guys stole. And this one I don't get why it's a negative thing that this team has expectations. They make expectations sound like the boogeyman's under your bed trying to kill you. Like, I really don't get it. Now, I get what you're saying. The outside expectations will bear down on this team and destroy them from within. Dude, and I'm saying media outside the Browns, we really don't matter that much. Like, we don't change seasons. Like, it does not matter how many expectations we put on this team. It does not matter what Colin Cowherd thinks this team's going to do. It does not matter how good Stephen A thinks this team's going to be or how many expectations are going to be on it. None of this crap outside affects the game on the field. It does not matter. It is here for fans who want to discuss the game. We take ourselves way too seriously if we think our expectations that we put on the Browns are seriously going to affect them. And the second thing about expectations is that expectations aren't this boogeyman under your bed. They're privilege. They're for the good teams, with the good rosters, with the good players, with the good chemistry that can win games. You know what team had no expectations? The 2017 Browns. And along with their no expectations, they had no wins. So you know what? I'd rather have expectations every day of the week because it didn't seem like the lack of pressure that team had because of no outside expectation did anything for the product on the field. So again, national media, ESPN, our expectations don't matter to what this team is going to do on the field. It's a media-driven plot line, honestly. It does not matter what we think this team is going to do. What matters is what happens within the four walls of every team's building, or if you're the Bengals, parking lot. We're not that important. If the Browns think this year it's going to be because of something internally, it's not because we gave them expectations. Are you kidding me? And now that gets me to the last point. Too many egos, which is another, again, dumb point, because does this team have too many egos? It's not a bunch of dudes who want to run the ship. I mean, if you look at the big personalities on this team, these guys are big personalities because, they're fun. Let's really break down why people think OBJ is going to be a bad thing for the locker room. Because if you talk to anybody who's played with OBJ, love the dude. Love the dude. Anybody who's ever trained with OBJ loves the dude. Anybody who's not been his GM or head coach loves the dude. Now, why is that? See, the Giants organization, that's the team that last had him, I believe, takes themselves way too seriously. Browns fans definitely know how seriously Pat Shurmur takes himself, and we know how seriously Dave Gettleman takes himself. And I think the both of them take themselves entirely too seriously, to the point to where they resented OBJ for being famous off the field. I think that's what it boiled down to with the Giants. They didn't like that OBJ could be at Fashion Week. They didn't like that OBJ is a constant headline because he's mainstream popular. They don't like that from their football players. They want him like Eli Manning, boring. They took OBJ's personality, they took OBJ's popularity off the field as disrespect to the game of football. How? And you know why OBJ is going to have a good year in Cleveland? You know why Cleveland is a great fit for him? Not because of the city, but because of the organization. See, the Browns organization, they have this key trait from top to bottom. From Dorsey to Freddie Kitchens to Baker Mayfield, they have this commonality, and that is they don't take themselves that seriously. They take what they do seriously, of course. They are hard workers, every single one of them, but they don't take themselves that seriously. John Dorsey is a walking meme. He wears the same clothes to everything. He wears the same like 4-layer hoodie in the summer every day like a cartoon character because he's making fun of himself. He's having fun. Freddie Kitchens is another dude who doesn't take himself that seriously. He always jokes about how he doesn't look like a former quarterback from Alabama, how he looks more like a fan. He's always willing to have fun at the expense of himself, but he's always willing to work hard. Baker Mayfield, I mean, just that mustache alone tells you he doesn't really take himself seriously. This is a man who almost won a Heisman Trophy with a Fu Manchu. This dude does not take himself that seriously, but he takes his work seriously, and you see that every week. See, that's what OBJ needs. Somebody who's not going to take his fame, his popularity, him dancing and having fun with his popularity as a football player as a sign of disrespect to football. See, he's going to be able to be who he is. He's going to be embraced for being who he is. New York was a terrible situation for him because they resented him for being OBJ. And when you're in a situation where you feel like you're being resented for who you are, and I've been in that situation before, then it's hard for you to focus on the goal ahead of you because you feel like just who you are is not appreciated, is not wanted. How could you be successful in that environment? He is not going to be an issue. He is passionate about the game. That's not a problem. And see, that's the note I want to leave this on, because I believe in general, we take ourselves way too seriously in life. And I also think in sports, people take themselves way too seriously. I think the people covering sports have a tendency to do it. I think the people in sports sometimes has a tendency to do it. Like, sometimes we need to be reminded that sports are supposed to be fun. Sports aren't politics. This stuff is not that serious. If my team wins or loses, it does not change my life in a significant way. It is just a fun thing that I take part in every week because it's fun and enjoyable. So it's important that we always take a step back from the debates, from the anger, from the frustration, and just remember to not take it too seriously. Because sometimes we forget that and we physically fight each other about our favorite team. We compare sports to the military. We wear suits and take ourselves so seriously on debate shows as if we're trying to run for president. Sports should not be taken this seriously and this literal. There should be room for fun. A fun team with fun personalities that have fun with the game. This game is supposed to be fun. People booed and were so disrespectful to Andrew Luck after he retired because the game wasn't fun. If the game isn't fun, if it's not fun to watch, if it's not fun to play, then what are we doing? We need to have fun with this. So as the preseason ends and we look forward to the regular season, I invite everybody to just sit back and let's have a casual Friday every Sunday. Let's not take it as seriously. Let's loosen up the tie. Let's not get angry. Let's not tweet death threats to players if they drop a 3rd and long. Let's relax. Let's have fun with it. Kick back. Wear a fun Hawaiian shirt. You know, get a mustache. Twirl it. This game isn't about getting all red and pink and sweaty and screaming because somebody on ESPN doesn't think your favorite team's going to be good. This game is about the fun. We could disagree with them. We could call them idiots. So yeah, while ESPN is definitely pushing a narrative out here to try to tear the Browns down if they stink, ultimately, it doesn't matter what they say because they have no effect on what happens in the field. So we don't have to get that mad about it. We can just call them on their BS and sip Mai Tais while we watch the Browns win and then listen to the Tomahawk Show like we always do. And maybe watch some sweaty, racially ambiguous dude on YouTube. So yes, while ESPN is wrong and we're right because we know what the Browns look like they're going to be, let's just wait till the Browns show them that on the field and they scramble to find a new target to tear down. Because this year, it ain't going to be us. That is it for this week's video. Thank you guys for watching. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and ding that notification bell if you really like me. And if you want to help the show go and give us some money, you can buy a shirt, you can join the Patreon. Either is appreciated. That is it for this week's video. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.